When I was with him, the world seemed to stop. Literally. I know I've said this before to myself, but now that I'm back home, my world is on the go, doing my thing, people, clients, sponsors calling me, and I'm engaging with them. When I'm at his house, it's as if he lives in a world where no one bothers him. Sure, he has his own clients and sponsors and deals to tend to, e-commerce, but they never called all the time. His world was quiet. I guess he has it that way because he was sure able to focus a lot of his time on me. I loved that. I've not had that kind of attention on me ever. He wasn't watching sports or talking to his guy friends. He's not like most guys, where that consumes their time, and they don't really spend much of their time with their gal or seeing her, only when they want sex. It's an hour or so of socializing with her in exchange for an hour of sex. Not with my fantasy boyfriend. No, it was hours and hours of socializing and hanging out together for, well, hours of sex. Whenever I miss him, I text him. Not constantly, but usually once a day or every other day. If he's free, he'll text back. I trust he might be busy, and I appreciate the time we take off between us. Whenever we do talk on the phone, it's a time that again makes my world stand still. I just love the sound of his voice. After we hang up, if it's at night when we talk, I sleep so soundly. I love it when he reads to me in bed, too. I can always fall right to sleep to his voice if he reads me a bedtime story. One thing I've noticed, in all the orgasms he gave me, somewhere between 10 and 12 orgasms over a 4 and 5 day period, and all the times I took care of him, gladly, is that we didn't have vaginal sex. He never once hinted, asked, or manipulated his way to penetrate or enter my pink cherry box of moist, wet love with his manly member. Oh, great. Now I'm talking like him. While I never really thought much about it in retrospect, he was looking out for me and for him. He did tell me that intercourse is actually something very meaningful to him. So he'd rather wait, get to know me, and when it was right, we might have that type of physical intimacy. Yes, I wanted it in the beginning, but I'm so glad we didn't. And I really like that about him. Most guys, they want it. Women give it up. And then they, men, leave for the next woman, willing to give it up again and again so soon. The never-ending vicious cycle of men sleeping around and women giving it up in hopes that the man will stay. No guy sticks around these days, it seems like. What's amazing is that he was super cool about not doing it, even before I realized he was holding off for the two of us. I remember him telling me about a scenario where if I did want him to make love to me in that way, if I felt he was rejecting my advances, his response would be, "I'm not rejecting you. I'm protecting you. Let's wait. Let's build up the desire for us to want that over time. We'll be safer for it, and we'll appreciate our coming together when that day comes. Let's just not give in to our urges so fast. Good things come to those who wait, and honestly, we must earn that opportunity with time and trust." Wow. Talk about your real fantasy boyfriend. What guy ever thinks like that nowadays? When the time is right, and we do eventually merge our bodies as one, it will be something we both waited for, and it will be a night we will both remember. Why? Because I know we'll make it special. Maybe we'll fly or drive somewhere special and check into some hotel suite with a jacuzzi and a view of the city, the desert, or maybe the ocean. Either way, it's funny how we sometimes wish for things to happen to us. And when they don't happen to us, we're sometimes glad they didn't. My fantasy boyfriend was way ahead of me on this, and I love him for that. His lifestyle was so attractive. He worked from home, lived on passive and residual income, so he wasn't too involved with having to work for anybody. His ability to limit human contact where work was concerned meant his days and nights were fully free to do with as he wanted, which was to spend it with me, uninterrupted. Lucky me, right? Again, I've just never been treated this way before by any man. I've had my share of horrible, heartbreaking experiences. My heart's been broken so many times that I've lost count. Yet, he was so patient with me. He romanced me. He took me places in my mind, which were almost as good as experiencing the real thing. He didn't push me at all, in any way. Perhaps that's what makes him so special and so different from the other guys that I've come across. How'd he get this way? Maybe I'll ask him next time I talk to him. Because I did start spending several days not seeing him, he would call me to check in and see how I was doing and how I was processing certain thoughts now that I was back home on my own alone. It's as if I left him physically, but mentally, we were still engaged with conversation. We even did live chats over Zoom so I could see him, not just hear him on the phone. Talking to him from afar, from my house, gave me a different perspective, both physically and mentally, in order to process what I had been through while staying at his place for almost a week. It was in this time, away from him, that many of the following thoughts and mental conversations with myself came about. He taught me so many things I've never heard of before. I learned a lot from him just when I was with him. Most guys I meet or dated were either blah, dumb as a box of rocks, or just plain ignorant. Not my fantasy boyfriend. He's well-read, knowledgeable, smart about the world, history, culture, technology, business, making money, and life itself. I can ask him just about anything, and he would have a sound answer. If he didn't know the answer, he would admit it, and then we would research it together. We'd find out the answer. He's not afraid to ask when he doesn't know something. He wants to learn. A nice quality to see in a man. Well, no matter. He's an extremely gifted conversationalist. I mean, he'd say things that someone with a PhD or a master's degree couldn't even articulate. His depth of knowledge in certain subjects, dumbfounding. When I was away from him, I find myself going through powerful sexual withdrawals, as if I want to drive back over to his place in the middle of the night, knock on his door, surprise him and say, "I need you right now. Open the front door." Kind of like an itch you can't scratch, or only he can. It's like I'm experiencing some kind of heavy, sensuous addiction, mentally and physically speaking, when I'm away from him. I'm not kidding either. When you're taken to such highs, physically speaking, and you come down a few days later, you begin to want it again. If you've never had it in a long, long while, well, then you're kind of numb to it, all so you don't suffer. Well, in this case, every few days I'm away from him, I begin to suffer these powerful sexual withdrawal symptoms. I guess that's why I stay over at his place for a few days in a row, not just one night. I just don't want to come once when I'm with him, but maybe 3 or 4 times or more. He told me to watch out for the coming cycle of friendship peaks and valleys. At first, my closest friends would be happy for me. That would last about a week or two, maybe 3 at most. Then, they'd start to get curious about him. Who is he? Why do you spend so much time with him? Where'd you meet him? Can we meet him? Does he have a brother we can date too? I think I want to find a man like him. While they'd be supportive during the early stages of me seeing my fantasy boyfriend, it wouldn't be for long. Soon, they'd start to get upset and accuse me of ignoring them, that I can't see them or hang out with them like we used to, all because I was spending most of my time with my new guy, and a lot of that time in bed, mind you. It's interesting how when you're lonely and single, everyone's happy and hanging out. I guess it's that misery loves company syndrome. Believe it or not. Then when you find someone, and you find yourself spending more time with them, your friends, they're no longer friendly to you, and they start to resent you dating someone with such impact on you. Even if it's a positive change in your life, I guess they're comparing their lives with mine and seeing how their boyfriends don't treat them as nice, or they are in and out of relationships. Maybe I'm smiling more because my man helps me smile more, and they can't relate. So they get mad at me. He told me about this, and I'm starting to see it happen right before my eyes. Every week, he'll make a new prediction as to how my friends will respond to me, and it will almost always come true. How he knows this, I have no idea. Dating my fantasy boyfriend is a lot like dating a fortune teller, let me tell you. His ability to predict the future and people is unbelievable. I'm smiling a lot more now that I'm seeing my fantasy boyfriend, and it's obvious to people. They make statements like, "Did you see your man? I can tell. You're always smiling and happy and skipping when you do. I wish my man would have that kind of an effect on me like yours does with you." I guess it's true. Every time I think of him, which is a lot, I smile. When he calls or texts, I smile. When I'm with him, I smile. I start noticing how my lady friends didn't smile as much, or like me, even though they had boyfriends. It was as if my smiling all the time was kind of making them sick with envy or jealousy. After a while, I had to start hiding my smiles from them as I didn't want to conjure up thoughts that I had been with my man and remind them of their own disappointing relationships if they were in one. I just don't know how he knows all that he does about how to treat me, pleasure my body. He really knows what a woman wants. He also knows a woman's body almost as good or better than a woman. That is impressive. He would say things that my lady friends would say, and I would always ask, "How did you know that?" I asked him what his past relationships were like and why they didn't work out. Being told he only had a handful of long-term monogamous relationships for whatever reason, it just might not have been the time or the right person for him to stay in those relationships. Perhaps one gal's family was crazy or too intrusive on his quiet lifestyle. Maybe he or she had to move and one of them couldn't go with him. Maybe he or she wanted one thing that the other couldn't fulfill at that time. No matter, any breakup he did have with a woman was as amicable as possible. He'd even not date until the other found someone and started dating again. This showed he wasn't in a rush to replace her and that her heart was important that she find someone soon. Wow, I've never dated anyone like that. Kind of makes it hard to break up with a person like that. Yeah, it's amazing, but he gives off this father, brother, lover, protector, teacher, mentor vibe, all combined into one man. And I love that about him. How is that possible? I can lean on him when I need to. I can consult with him for advice on heavy matters, and he always comes through. He cares for me like a father does a daughter. something I miss and find so healing, since my own father passed away when I was in my early 20s. He's a protector, like having an older brother. Of course, he's my lover and treats me like the lady I am. Most guys I meet have one, a few, or none of these traits in them at all.